Today in the studio is Conor Keeley.
In there again, Keeley. He can hit it.
Oh, what a goal!
That could be the goal of the season.
Conor started his senior career at Shelbourne FC, a club who he represented since under 13 level. He joins us today as a Drogheda United player, playing under Kevin Doherty, the same manager who gave him his senior debut back in 2015.
It in at the front post. This is a better ball, and that is a second goal for Drogheda United. Conor Keeley flicks it home.
Conor has accumulated just under 200 senior appearances before the age of 26.
It was the worst 4 days of my life. I was just a ball of anxiety.
Today we discuss his career so far, the main differences between the League of Ireland and the Northern Irish Football League, and coping with anxiety. We hope you enjoy the podcast.
Conor Keeley. Hello.
Hello.
How are you?
All good.
All
Thanks
good. Pleasure to have you on.
Appreciate it.
Pleasure to have you on. Right, you know the deal. You've been saying you've listened to have you listened to all the guest podcasts thus far?
A few of them, yeah.
Few of them. You're good mates with Jamie Egan, obviously. So
Indeed, yeah.
he had you well briefed, and he's obviously after moving to Drogs as well. But we'll get into all that straight into it. Yeah, ready to go?
Yeah.
You know the question.
I do indeed.
Chocolate, sweets, crisps, go.
Exactly how you've just said it there.
Chocolate, sweets, crisps.
And crisps, yeah.
It's the right answer. It's the right answer. Great.
In the
Skip,
good book
fly
straight
past
away,
that.
yeah.
Great. Brilliant. Great answer. The best player you've played against?
I've had to do my research on this one as well.
Well prepared.
Well
Proactive
prepared,
man.
yeah,
Such a
no,
centre half. Such a centre half.
No, it's a bit of a different one. Tyrone Mings.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
He was he came over to Talca. We were playing Ipswich in the pre-season friendly during the summer, and he came on the second half. And lads, he was playing left back, and he was up front more than he was playing left back. He was unbelievable. He ended up scoring the game as well. I was gonna say Calvin Phillips as well, but I didn't play in that game because Leeds came over as well. That they sold out Talca, but no, I'd probably say Tyrone Mings.
That's a funny one, right? I'm not too sure how familiar you are with our past podcasts, but we've had major debates over Tyrone Mings.
In what way?
The way is, we don't rate him as highly as everyone does rate him. Now, he was probably a joke. He was unreal when he was younger, wasn't he, playing left foot?
Yeah.
He probably
Very,
would have stood
very
out ridiculously. But we discussed that he's in a lot of squads. He's very athletic, obviously, and he seems to be a really cool guy. But I think he's a liability defensively.
Yeah, again, it's like he has his moments, and I think they're big moments as well. Like some defenders might have little bips and might not lead to a goal, but especially last 2 seasons, there seems to be big moments where he's making mistakes and conceding goals. That's probably why you think that, but I still rate him from that day.
Oh yeah, but see, that's the thing, isn't it? Like, first opinion, if you see someone, especially in person, he's an animal as well. He must have been huge back then.
I thought he was a goalkeeper because he still had sort of similar hair and stuff. He was 6'6". He was taller than me at the time, and he was the quickest player I've ever seen in my life. Like,
That's crazy, isn't it? They do athleticism even at that age. Like, they're just like there's always another gear there. And obviously Ipswich must have been quality as well. They probably had a lot of good individuals.
Yeah,
where
that's
you're
what
just
I don't know. I can't remember anyone else. But again, I think they'd be a 6-0 or 5-0 or something. That's how they're obviously good. But no, he was a standout one. Obviously, he's gone on to have a really good career.
He's done well under Emery as well recently.
Yeah,
So was everyone in Villa, aren't they? Actually, sorry to cut across everyone.
Sorry.
Emery, Kinger's gone. We need to announce that quickly.
Do we?
We do, quickly. Kinger's gone from the podcast, everyone. Unfortunately, Kinger's gone. And he hasn't been let go. He's taken a fantastic gig. Analysis gig at 16s, isn't it, in Aston Villa? Yeah. Sad. The podcast audience are going to be fuming. Because I'm fuming. I love him. And he's gone. So we had to mention it.
Yeah.
It's a sad day.
It is.
And he literally went and seen us today. So he's gone. Right, let's move on. Am I joking, King? I love you. Right, next cue.
Probably with the research done as well, Conor. Who is your favourite player to play with?
I'm going to upset a few people with this, but I've narrowed it down to one person purely because of where we were and how far we got. So that was at Cabo, and he probably listened to this and he'd be delighted, but Jack Chew.
Oh, Jack is a follower of ours.
Yeah, he'd be delighted with that
Chew.
shout out now, but I was thinking Manny this year, but we've only played half season, so we can't, we have to rule that out. But that year we got to the playoff semi-finals, draw to beat us in the end. But that season, me and him, like, we're basically two mates, and we were just playing alongside each other, and it was one of the best sort of seasons I would have had playing alongside someone was alongside him.
Class. Jack was a really good player when he was younger. Remember we watched him play for Reading in the Dublin Cup. They played in the AUL. He was obviously well sought after now. Do you know what's the funny thing about Jack Chew is that how often do you see him on telly at the Irish games? I remember we were saying that because one of our mates, one of our cousins who works with us knows him from Luke and knows him. He's friendly enough with him, and he's saying he always just is always on the telly. Did he ever talk about that?
It's any Ireland match, you just send a Snapchat to him going like you're on the telly again, like,
all the time.
But I went to Copenhagen 5-6 years ago when we played them. Remember they beat us 4-0?
Yeah,
I think it was
Ericsson,
yeah. But I went to the away trip and I remember walking down the main street and there he was with a big speaker on top of someone's shoulders just blaring out music. That's just the way he is. He loves going to the Ireland games, but yeah, he always seems to manage to get onto the TV. So, you know.
He's negotiating somewhere. I wouldn't mind the clout myself. It's not bad. Don't know how he managed it.
Oh, he loves it.
What is your dream stadium to play in?
Ooh, I'd probably have to say Anfield purely because I'm a Liverpool fan. Like I've been there 10, 11 times in my life, and just especially now, obviously with the extensions they've put in now, I think that'd probably be my number one. If we go safe and say like Bernabeu or Camp Nou, but I'd say Anfield just purely because I've supported them over my whole life.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I mean, it'd be all top for you, wouldn't it?
Oh yeah,
As
definitely.
United fans.
Big time.
Definitely.
The last two questions, because I knew you come prepared, so we had to always throw in the curveballs because you can't be having all the answers off the bat. You know what I mean? If you didn't play football, what would you do with your time?
Ooh, that's a good one.
That is a good one.
I'll give you one. I was playing my first year at Shells. I was also playing with the Mead Miners in GA.
Okay.
So I trained twice with Shells and twice with them, and then play on a Friday and play like a friendly on a Saturday with the GA. So it was probably be GA. I'd probably be playing, and obviously work, but we haven't got that far yet. Squad boys would probably be playing GA. Yeah.
That's interesting.
Yeah, big full forwards.
I was going to say, where would you play?
Yeah.
Opposite.
Yeah, good luck playing against you though.
Nah,
Well, what height are you?
6'5".
Yeah, good luck. Busy then. Honestly, I couldn't stand that. GA's an interesting one because I'm not the biggest fan of GA. But do you like you'd obviously be good at it. You've got the size and you're very athletic actually for your size. But do you find that like translates into GA well as a footballer or no?
It's hard. Like it depends on the person a little bit. You know what I'm saying? Like I always say to like there's kids that ask me, like parents will say, "Oh, give them advice for football and stuff." Like, just play as many sports as you can. Because again, like physicality in GA, you might not get at underage and sort of football and stuff like that. So, that's what I always say to parents. But yeah, no, I think it's again, as you said, I'm not a fan of it now. I used to be because it was just kind of a bit more helter skelter sort of thing. It's a bit more. I'm not a fan of the way it is now. But again, it's fantastic, especially for kids. You usually have to be dealing with it as well, just the physicality side, and obviously you're playing with your mates as well. Because obviously with football, it's kids from
it's very
different areas,
dispersed,
stuff
isn't
like
it? GA's very community based.
Very community based. Like I had one of my mates move to Bridget's in Castleknock, just like Castleknock. But apart from that, I would have played with my mates through my whole life playing GA. So
Interesting.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, the GA scene is it's always intriguing. Especially when you get to that cross paths, they seem to collide an awful lot, don't they?
Big time.
Between the two, football, especially, and the problem is generally the adults involved in it, which is the sad thing, where it's like pick one, pick the other, and that happens early doors, like 12, 13, and you do find issues with that, I suppose, where like you said, you can learn a lot from both, and you can enjoy both until whatever it comes to time to.
That happened to me.
Pick each.
My debut for Shells, I'll never forget. It was the last game of the season, and Kev Doherty told me, "Look, you're going to be playing in the bases," and we had a GA semi-final on that night as well, and basically had to choose one. They said, "Look, if you don't play this, we don't want you back." Basically, so they didn't say that, but they basically said that. And they played with Shells, and
that was it. Never played GA again. Have you played a game since? 2
games for the 21s when I was in the off season, but that was it. Never played it again.
Wow.
Yeah.
That leads us perfectly into the start. That is very interesting, though. What age are you?
Oh, would have been 17 at the time.
It's an early debut.
Early debut, yeah.
Early debut. Best, especially for because you said 97 born. 97 born. I think it's more common now, isn't it, in the National League that younger lads are just getting thrown into the mix because you have the underage academies that are coming up. That definitely wouldn't have been the case. I know Shells obviously had their DDSL squads and so on, but you wouldn't have had the National League underage system at that time.
No, they only had the 19s. That was
Yeah,
it.
that was
I
it.
remember I wanted to. They wanted me to play 19s, but there was an age thing where if you were born past a certain time, and I was only 16, I couldn't actually play for them. So I had to wait another year to get into the 19s. But again, 19s is the only thing you had growing up, and now they have the 13s, the 15s, 17s, 19s, the whole way up. But again, we only had the 19s. So again, you kind of saw a lot of lads at that time, if they didn't make the 19s,
That's it.
that was it. Like that was you're done, and a lot of them don't play football now, which is a shame.
Yeah. So 17 making a debut. Your current gaffer, Kev Doherty.
Yeah.
What's he like? Number one.
Gentleman.
Yeah.
Gentleman, nicest person you ever meet. He doesn't, obviously he puts pressure on you because it's football, but he kind of allows you to go out and sort of express yourself in a way, and he doesn't put too much pressure on you. Obviously he has a rattle off you when it needs be, but honestly I couldn't speak highly enough, Kev.
Yeah, so you got your debut off. It's cool that you're back playing in the National League under him now as well. So your debut comes about 17. Did you feel when you were younger that you were a strong player and you're thinking, I absolutely deserve my right to go and make this debut, or was it a case where it just kind of came out of nowhere?
It was kind of half and half really. It kind of came out of nowhere because I was training with him, but I never expected to play. But I was kind of in the same mindset of I was playing week in, week out with the 19s, and that you automatically think, right, senior team, I'm going to do the same. But obviously that's not the case, and that's ultimately why I ended up leaving Shells. Wasn't getting game time, got frustrated and stuff like that. So kind of changed that mentality was tough from going playing week in, week out with the 19s to then not being in squads, travelling down to Waterford, let's say, sitting in the stands and travelling back up, get home 2 a.m. So that was tough. But again, I never really took football that seriously. You know, I kind of just go to kind of enjoy it, which I still do. But at the time, I didn't really see a career in it. I just kind of like, if it happens, it happens sort of thing. You know.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Nice. So from Shells, where did you end up?
So that season, I ended up leaving. I think a game before the season ended. Was working part-time, stuff like that. Didn't know what to do. I was thinking about obviously going back to playing GAD and whatever, stuff like that. Got a phone call off Eddie Gormley, who was with Cabo at the time. They said, look, we want to bring you in. Dara Doyle is coming in, going to be playing with us for the season ahead, who I was with at Shells as well. And basically met them and had a good conversation. And yeah, I spent a good 3.5 years there. So really, really enjoyable. And again, that kind of dug me out of a hole because again, you're at a point where there was no phone calls. You know, you only kind of go off what you're kind of hearing from, like, let's say your friends or whatever about clubs, interests and stuff like that. But now got that call and yeah, was delighted to sign.
The retention, sorry G, I know you're going to say something there, but the retention, 3 years for Irish football to stay in one club, it's actually quite rare, isn't it? Unless it's, of course, you're on a really good full-time deal, and we're only seeing them multi-year deals very recently. At that time, and again, it probably wasn't years ago, but it was still at a time where those multi-year deals weren't coming around. For a 3-year deal, for example, did you sign year on year? Was it just 1 year contracts? Year on year. But even to stay like that, was it a case where just, I'm so happy that I'm playing, I feel good, I'm just going to keep doing it? Because a lot of players will try somewhat make a jump or try something new. What made you stay in that environment for so long?
Well, I give you 2 things. One was that I was comfortable there, and 2 was that I didn't do enough to go to that next level. And that's me.
Honest, yeah.
I'm very, very honest. I'm very open about it. You know, I was in college at the time, was, you know, again, kind of taking football on the back burner sort of thing. Like, I was enjoying my football, was training twice a week, playing on a Friday and enjoying my time in college and stuff like that. So I loved it. But again, I could have done more to progress my career a little bit further, quicker. But again, I think I ended up playing like 100 games, nearly 100 games for Cabo in the end over the 3.5 years. So it was good in that way. But again, I don't have regrets, but I could have done more at that time to progress my career a little bit quicker. Okay.
So what is the thing that you weren't doing? Like, is it just a case of just you weren't giving it everything, or was there very specific things that you like, I should have done this, or I should have done that, or in hindsight I wish I'd done this?
Yeah, the big thing is, like, you train your twice a week and you have your matches, and that's all I did. You know, and like, per example, the kids you are training now, is that you have to nail on you have to do those extra bits, whether it's an extra session like yourselves or going to the gym or doing stuff like that, training with another like team in a different sport. I wasn't doing that. I was just training, went home, was out in college, you know, enjoying myself as, you know, most people do. But yeah, that's what I ended up doing in the end. But again, I don't have any regrets. It was just the way it was, and I loved it, absolutely loved it. But again, things could have been different if I had just put in that extra bit of work.
It's fair enough. It's fair enough assessment of the whole thing. It's interesting because like 2 days a week is nothing.
No.
Like it's nothing.
No.
When you really think about, like, for example, we see the National League clubs now, the underage, they're training minimum 3 times a week, which I think they should be. I think minimum is a minimum requirement. But even the senior level in the country, like 2 nights a week, probably at any level isn't good enough. But I know a lot of places are volunteers, but definitely in the senior game, two nights just doesn't cut it, does it? So if you do the bare minimum, if you just do what is somewhat contractually required of you, it's just not going to be enough, is it?
No,
definitely
never.
not to take it to the next stage.
Even compared to the academies over in England, let's say at under 17s level, like the amount of hours they put in a week training compared to here. But we were senior level and we were only doing 3 hours a week training, and an hour of that accumulated over the week is warm up, you know, sort of way. So you're really only getting 2 hours training a week. Like, it's just absolutely nothing to, you know, push yourself on and stuff like that. So again, it's improving now. It's getting a lot better, but again, there's still a lot more room for improvement.
Do you think your personality could have, let's say, survived in the Category 1 academy at 16, training 4 nights a week away from your parents, etc.? Do you think that it was a natural progression to actually now kick on at an older age?
I think so. I'll give you this. A lot of people don't know this, but I went away on trial at 15, and that killed off my sort of motivation to move abroad.
Really?
It was the worst. I think I was there for 4 days. I won't name the club now, but it was the worst 4 days of my life. I was just a ball of anxiety, was completely out of my comfort zone. You know, it's different now with kids. I always say, like, because even Josh, my little brother, went over to a few clubs. Like, he was in a hotel, he was getting everything, he was getting a lift everywhere. Like, I was made walk back from the training ground back to the digs, which is like a 15-minute walk, 20-minute walk, following the academy keeper behind him. And I'm going like, I just want to go home. Like, this is not for me. So after that, I didn't really have the motivation to go back to England, you know. So I just wanted to just enjoy football. And I did, and listen, it's worked out well now, but again, it could have been a whole lot different.
Yeah, hindsight's powerful, isn't it? Like, you could have been, I wish things, but you seem, personality-wise, obviously we know you quite well, not massively, but we know you quite well. We know you're a very nice guy or whatever, but it's clear that you're quite self-aware. We bring it up a lot on the podcast, that it's like that at that time, this isn't good for my life, which is interesting at 15 that you picked up that. Did you know, like, immediately when you went over, thinking, no way? Straight
away. Like, I remember this so well. I don't remember much from my childhood, but I was up at 4 a.m. to get let's say 6:30 flight, and got there, trained at 9:30 in the morning, and by 11 the coach pulled me and he goes, you look tired. I'm like, yeah, I've been up since 4 o'clock this morning, getting a flight, and all the boys been in bed since till 8 o'clock, you know, sort of way. And he's kind of having a go at me, and I was on the phone to me, I was like, man, I want to go home here, like, this is for me, like. And he was probably right, I did look tired, but like, I'm going like, I'm up since 4 o'clock this morning, you know, sort of way. But look, there the standards, you look. And actually, one of the nicest fellas I ever met was Hamza Chowdhury, that plays.
Yeah.
He was on that team at the time, and he looked after me so well. And probably without him, I probably wouldn't lasted the 4 days.
Wow.
Yeah.
Good old Hamza.
Yeah, Hamza. Yeah.
Shout out Hamza.
Yeah.
Get him on the podcast.
Get him on the podcast. Yeah. I only remember him because it was here, but no, he looked after me over there, and again, I don't think it would have lasted the whole trip over there without him. So, no, it was good. We played Arsenal's academy in Arsenal as well, so it was a good trip, but
just not
that was
the
only good part of the rest of it was brutal. I hated it.
That's the whole thing with football. I think, again, we do talk about this a lot, but the whole idea of football being luxurious, it's not.
No.
It's not.
Not at all.
Not even at the highest. Even now, your top, maybe, but what percentage of pro footballers even get near that? I mean, the most minimal amount. But yeah, the amount of spare time and just silly stuff like that, where you're alone and you're anxious and you're literally, your whole job, it shouldn't be, but your identity is based off how you play on the weekend. Yeah. And the moment the game's done, no one cares. It's straight to the next weekend, and that just process repeats for years and years and years.
I could tell you 10 lads now who went over to England at my age who weren't even playing football anymore.
Yeah.
And like I heard Killian Phillips talk about it as well. When he has kids, he wouldn't push them if they wanted to play football. He wouldn't push them, and I'd be the exact same. I would be like, it's not something I push my kids to do because I know how I felt over there, that sort of way.
Yeah.
But again, there's so many lads that have come back now they just don't even play football anymore. Just lost the love for it because it's tough over there. It really is tough.
Yeah, I think now that you've seen both sides, let's say, of the academy system in England, and now that you have a well-established senior career, what are some of the day-to-day things that people don't really know about being a professional footballer?
Start another podcast, I wouldn't talk about them. There's so many points. Well, I can only speak from my experience.
Yeah, definitely, man.
I've never had full-time football in my life. I've always played part-time football.
Okay.
So the big one for me is obviously trying to earn a living outside of football, which I'm finding difficult now because I'm ringing places up saying, yeah, no, I'm available to work till 4 o'clock every day. Oh, we need you till 5:30. Oh, we need you till 6. It's impossible to get. So some people still think you don't get paid playing League of Ireland football, which obviously you do. You don't make hundreds of thousands, but you make a good bit of money off it, so they keep you going. But stuff like that, and it's so hard to, progress your career outside of it as well, especially playing part-time.
Yeah.
I've found. But there's some lads that work till 4:30 on a Friday and then they go play 90 minutes in the League of Ireland with us now, that sort of way. So it's tough. There's so many. I'll probably text you later on now when we start thinking a few more, but no, it's a lot tougher than what a lot of people perceive it to be.
Yeah, especially part-time football. Very difficult, isn't
Big
it?
time.
Very difficult because you're working a full-time job, and essentially football, whether you like it or not, because yes, you might have 2 or 3 training sessions a week with your club, but you also, since that's all you're getting with your club, you do have to go to the gym and you have to make sure you do your other bits, and you're trying to fit that all around a schedule for, like you said, you're getting paid, but it's not full-time money. You can't devote your whole life to it unless it's a case where we're seeing some of the younger lads now, Manny for example, that probably is all in on that type of thing because he has a little bit more time, but you're not old by any stretch of imagination, but you're well experienced now as a senior player where you do need to make ends meet essentially, as well as deal with the pressure of playing every Friday night. It's very interesting, isn't it? Like, it's such a tough life, especially if it's a case where, like you said, if you don't love football, like if you're not fully invested or you don't feel comfortable in yourself, trying to balance those two, it's essentially like living 2 separate lives in one, isn't it?
No, it is. And I'm actually lucky because I don't have any kids, I don't have a mortgage to pay off. Like, some of the lads have all that. So you're talking about going to the gym, they just can't get that in. There's so many things outside of football that you need to think of as well. But I'm lucky I don't have any of those commitments as of yet. So it's, I can't imagine how stressful it is for them lads. For me, it's stressful now, but with all them other things as well counted in, it's really, really tough.
No doubt. And so it was obviously a very successful period at Cabinteely for 3 years, with probably your first real taste of competitive men's football, and then you made the switch across to the Northern Irish Premier Division to Ballymena. What were the major differences between the League of Ireland here, experience in the Premier Division, and also the First Division, compared to the Northern Irish Premier Division?
It's colder.
Really?
Much colder, yeah. Cold rain away and stuff like that. On Boxing Day and stuff like that, it's different. But now it's quite similar in a way, but it's a lot more physical. Like,
Where, up north?
Up north, yeah.
Is it?
Big time. Like, the standard, like the Premier Division down here would be a good bit ahead of the Premier Division up there, in my opinion. Now, it is getting better up there, but it still has a long way to go. I think it's about maybe 6, 7, 8 years behind the Premier Division here.
Wow, okay.
Big time. But it is getting better because you have teams that are doing well in the Champions League and the Conference League and stuff like that now. But no, there's a good few differences, but again, it kind of suited me in a way because it was, heading, kicking, defending.
Where did you say that when you moved there?
Yeah, it was heading, kick it. I love that saying for centre halves. If you're a real old school centre half, aren't you? Head it, kick it, and you can play. In fairness to you, for a big man, you can play, but it's like, just head it.
No,
kick it.
We were told no, don't do that. When it's on, do it, but it was never on. Sort of way. But no, Davy Jeffries, lovely man. He said to me, head it, kick it, and get angry, because he said you're at your best when you get angry. Because I'm real laid back. We were playing the Irish Cup final, and like all the guys were like, you know, kind of hunching over, kind of, you know, drinking 3 litres of water and stuff. I'm just there like, it's just another game, you know, sort of way. But yeah, just head kick it and get angry was just his motto to try to get me up for games.
That is excellent.
Yeah.
Excellent. What is it? We see a lot of players are coming from the National League, either First Division and Premier Division, and they're going up north. What do you think the pull is? Or is it just a case of there's a couple of good deals going on? But what do you think is the main pull for going away?
I think it's an opportunity, because from my experience, trying to get from the First Division to the Premier Division is a massive, massive step that a lot of people wouldn't probably realise. And for me, it was to kind of go prove myself, but it was an opportunity to, you know, get my name out there, especially clubs up there. There's full-time clubs. I think there's 6 of them now. 5 or 6.
I think it was 6. Yeah.
6. Yeah. So there's opportunity up there, but again, it's about kind of progressing your game, getting more experience. For me, hopefully it was to move closer back home, and it ended up working out. But again, I think it's it's a broader scale, and you have clubs from, let's say, Scotland, England come over. They'd watch those games as well. It's because it's the UK connection there. But no, for me it was just about opportunity and going to prove myself in a different league.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. What's the culture like up there? Is it massively different to here? As in fans, just the general vibe of clubs. I know obviously you just had experience Ballymena or whatever, but do you feel it's any way different, or is it quite similar?
It's quite similar. They are passionate up there, but they wouldn't have the crowds that we'd obviously have down here now. Like, you've 7,000 at Rovers, 5,000 at Cork. Even with Drogheda, we've 2,500 at games. But they are passionate. They love their football up there. And the thing was, like, I lived up there for 4 months during my second year, and just meeting people and stuff like that, talking, because it's such a small country as well. Like, but no, they definitely are passionate. But again, I think it's a ground game, and I think they will get the numbers now over the next couple of years. Like, even with Linfield, like, they'd only get 2,100 at games, and they play in Windsor.
Yeah.
So it's like, now obviously you might not get 13,000, but you know that the capacity is there to grow the crowd. But no, they are passionate. I loved every single minute playing up there. Loved it.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. And when it comes to, let's say, the move back to Drogheda, how does a move come about when, let's say, you, like, again, you've had, even with the statistics here, a very established time at Ballymena. How does Drogheda come in and make an approach to actually bring you back to Ireland?
When I first heard of it, was actually, I got pulled. We were training on a Tuesday up there, and manager pulled me in, and there's 3 other people sitting there. I'm like, right, something's going on here. I might have been let go, or I've done something wrong. But I didn't do anything wrong, but no, he just pulled me in. He said, look, big man, we've had interest from you. And I'm thinking, like, okay. And he kind of prolonged it a little bit. He just kept going on and on. I was like, you just tell me the club, sort of thing. Like, he was like, no, Drogheda are interested in signing you, but we don't let you go, and stuff like that. So it was kind of like a 2-week period of just back and forth, and it made sense for me to come back down, because I wasn't. We were part-time at Ballymena as well. I wasn't working up there. It was very, very hard to find a job up there, with the football as well. So it made sense. And then, there's a bit of forward and back stuff like that. And then I ended up going on the transfer list, even though there's not an official transfer list. And it just all escalated from there. And then I ended up just coming back down.
Interesting. Because I'm always curious now. There's a big difference between signing, let's say, an 18-year-old on a pro deal to the let's say the Category 1 academies in England, compared to what it is to sign an established senior player. And I'm trying to, like, open up the conversation more so to, let's say, an educational side for people that are listening, to see, like, actually what goes on with a transfer. Because I think the word transfer, you only think about, let's say, what Fabrizio's putting up on Instagram, for example.
Here we
People
go,
don't really
medical, and we'll fly them in, and all looks great.
Yeah,
but like, it's so different, isn't it?
Yeah.
So, what was your experience of it? I presume was kind of what you were.
Yeah,
getting
exactly
to.
what it was going to be.
So you've been pulled in. You got the brief. Drogheda want you. You're on the transfer list that doesn't exist.
Yeah.
And then what? What goes on from there?
To be honest, it was my dad that kind of looked after most of it, because I didn't have an agent at the time. So I'm just kind of just training away, making sure I'm not, throwing the toys out of the pram and stuff like that. But like, there's not. I just kind of kept getting word of what was being said, and Ballymena obviously wanted money, and there's talk all that going on. But it just, there's one day I woke up and like, right, it's happening. That's it, like. And so I was already back home at that stage, and drove to Drogheda and signed the contract, and then that was it.
That was it.
Yeah, I played my last game in the Irish Cup, because they actually ended up getting to the Irish Cup final that year, and I'd scored against Carrick and we won on penalties, and that was my last game. But from the way that everyone, they did like a goodbye interview and stuff like that, I kind of just knew, like, right, it's gonna happen either now or tomorrow. So it happened very soon after that.
Very interesting. And you came back to Drogheda, same manager, Kev Doherty, gave you the debut at Shells. What changed in terms of your relationship from when you were a 17-year-old kid to when you came back as a mature man?
To be honest, not a lot. Like, Kev's the exact same person. His mannerisms and all, like, and it made it a little bit easier with obviously Dara in as assistant manager. I've played with Dara as well. But no, he's genuine. He's like, just picked off. It's like you've met a mate for the first time, your best mate in the first time in 10 years. Just like kind of like, yeah, just kind of like, let's go play football and do your best. He knew what he wanted out of me. He explained that from day one, and he was just like, yeah, let's just go to work. That was really it. Like, there's not. I know that sounds a bit of a boring answer, but
not at all.
That's just the way it kind of went.
I think a lot of the conversations that we have naturally with the senior players definitely tilts towards talking about their staff and managers informally. I think a lot of the real benefits that I think players get from staff managers is way less from the football side, way more from how they connect with them as a person. That kind of leads me to the next question, really, is that what would you look for in your manager, and what do you look for in their backroom staff? Again,
as you said, there's sort of people person. Like, if I was a manager or a coach, that's the way I'd like to be. You know, every player is different, but from my perspective, it's all about sort of encouragement, arm around the shoulder, you know, talking to you as a sort of human being. Because I think you see a lot of obviously Premier League managers, stuff like that, they can be quite robotic and stuff like that. For me, I couldn't do that. I don't know what it is. I just like talking to people as normally as I can. And with Kev and Dara, you get that, you know, that's the way. Obviously I play with Dara, know him years, and Kev is the exact same. He's just such a nice man, and he'd do anything for you outside of football as well.
And when it comes to, let's say, working with managers and staff, how much emphasis or respect do you get from somebody's, let's say, tactical awareness, or let's say I would say their football IQ?
As in, like, how would I respond to it? Or
like, is that something that you do respond to and respect? Because let's say, I think just because I'm in the coaching game, I think especially when I was younger, I put much more interest in coaches that really knew the game, like, and now it's kind of more tilting towards, like, you know, how vulnerable is this person? Like, how open are they going to be? Because that was kind of like the shift that I had and who I respected. I suppose the question reframed is, do you even care what tactical knowledge a manager has?
Yeah, obviously you do in a way, but again, it can be overcomplicated a lot of the times. Again, for me, I love, let's say, training sessions, I just love intensity. You know, and a lot of players nowadays, when you're doing shape and stuff like that, it can be a bit, come on, like, get this over, we just play 5 hours or something, play small side of games, you know, that sort of way. But for me,
football, aren't you?
Football attitude. But for me, it's intensity, and like I love the stats side of things. Like, I love, you know, looking at different things and watching players and how they move, small things like that. But again, for me, it's kind of old school. I just want to go out and play and be playing as the best I can, and just intensity in training. That's what I look for.
Yeah, definitely reflects. I think centre halves are either two ways. They either like that, they just like a simplified game plan where they know what they're good at, especially when, like, let's say you are 6'5", are great in the air and kick people. Like, it doesn't need to be more complicated than that. I always find it very interesting how managers try to manage that different balance of relationships where some players want detail. They want to know what's happening for throw-ins on the left-hand side when it's halfway up the pitch. Some of them don't give a shit. Like, it's just fascinating. But I think a pivot away from, let's say, your career in the football side is that obviously you have a younger brother, Josh, who is also really successful at the moment. What's it like in a household, let's say over Christmas time, or even when you were growing up, about having two talented footballers under the same roof? Is there jealousy? Is there competitiveness? Or is it just a case of you're just both loving life and kick on?
I tell you what, I genuinely, Josh was, I didn't speak to him up till he was about 16. He's going to kill me for saying this, but he'd come in from school and he'd go up to his room to play FIFA.
Yeah.
That's all he did, yeah. But ever since he's moved away, we're best mates. And like we never hate each other, never had jealousy, but that's just the way it was. Like you're a teenager, all you want to do is play PlayStation. But now we both love football. Obviously he's had a great career so far. He's won everything with Pats. He's gone away and he's living his best life now. But now we always love football and we'd always, do stuff together and stuff. But again, we never spoke properly till like he was 16 and he kind of was like, all right, I kind of relate to him a little bit more, that sort of way. But now he's my brother, but he's my best mate nowadays. Talking about anything and stuff like that, and him giving me all the insights into sports is interesting as well. So it's nice to hear.
It's cool insight.
No, it is
Cool
very cool.
insight. You were saying he's only back from the pre-season tour.
Yeah, no, he's away for 2 weeks. They're in, where are they in? I can't remember, in Australia, Bangkok, Singapore, and then back to London.
Yeah, great trip as well.
Yeah.
Those pre-season tours are so cool.
Yeah, for sure. Even last year, he signed with Spurs. I think he was there the day after, and they handed him a suitcase. They were like, "Yeah, you're going to Korea tomorrow," and that was it. And he was gone for a week and a half over in Korea.
Jeez.
So
Do you have to do an initiation?
I think he did. Like he kept that on quiet. Actually, I never.
Ask him.
He sang over there, but I can't remember what he sang in front of the whole sports team. Yeah,
Have you ever had to do an initiation?
did one this year. Yeah, we sang Aslan, Crazy World.
Good. Great.
Where is that in Swords? Chalk Bar, is it?
Oh, dude, Kinger's always on about the chalk bar.
Chalk Bar, yeah.
Always, yeah.
Great spot. No, there's a
Interesting.
few. Actually, I got voted the best.
Great.
Saturday night,
Great.
so-
Brilliant.
Now, to be fair, the stand was it was poor.
Was it?
Very, very poor.
So you were saying your missus is a musician.
She is indeed. She sings.
Bit of insight. Did she give you right, Connor? Here,
Not
listen.
really, just kind of go off
listen.
my own sort of chord.
Fair enough. Okay, fair enough.
I know my strengths and weaknesses like football, so
So yeah, good bro. Stick to
Yeah.
it. Head and kick it.
And then
Good
kick
man.
it, get angry.
Angry down the mic. Right. You as an individual, you were saying there you like stats and so on. Do you, when you go into game days, obviously everyone's kind of, internationally, everyone kind of is aware of everyone, but do you watch footage? And if you do or do not, obviously you can give the rationale for that. But if you do, what are you looking for in centre forwards? Like, well, what do you think? I know I can play well against him, or I will struggle against him. What's the key factors for that?
Obviously there's a few. We do our analysis on a Thursday with the whole team and stuff like that. But again, there's so many clips and the highlights get posted after every game day nowadays. But for me, it's kind of just looking more sort of one-on-one stuff. Again, in the box, stuff like that, tackles, no problem up the pitch. But the main one for me would be, let's say they run at you one-on-one. Do they sort of go right then left, or do they try and knock a by or stuff like that? Small things like that I kind of look at. Not in too much detail, because I don't like overthinking matches as well.
fair.
Most times, but small things like that is what I'd sort of look at.
Yeah, that's pretty, and again,
It's
quite
so
quite a
brief.
simple answer.
It's so simple.
Yeah,
but
so
again,
simple.
As I said, it can be overcomplicated
Yeah,
at
yeah.
times. Like, he takes 2 touches with the outside of his foot, then
Mm-hmm.
football is a very simple game, and you want it to be, that sort of way. So it's a brief answer, but again, it's only small little details that you kind of look for.
That's fair, and I think that's a very person by person case as well. Like, for example, I am very detail oriented. I think the majority of us are, but that's because the nature of supplemental coaching is quite detailed. So like, if I was a player, that's what I would seek. But it's very interesting that you're just like, let me know the basics, let me know roughly what I need to do, and then I'm just gonna go out and enjoy and like find the game, and just whatever happens happens. Do you like surrender going into games? You're thinking, where you're walking out in the tunnel, what's the thought process? Is it just go out, take it in, enjoy the game, or is it just go out and what goes in the mind? What do you think?
You walk from the tunnel, especially with Drogheda, you should be singing along with the lads, because you have the pyro. They're unbelievable there, lads. Have you seen the?
Yeah, very good support. Very good support.
Unbelievable the support they give. But now for me, like, I've said, I was only talking to someone a couple of weeks ago. Like, I haven't been nervous for one game this year, and it's not because I'm like, I'm this and that. We'll just go out and win. I'm just enjoying it. That's all it is. You go out and the fans are singing, you're singing along with them, and you get into the huddle. It's a bit serious. But then once the game starts, it's just another game of football. Like, and I think that's a big thing as well, because a lot of lads just overstress a little bit too much, and they don't enjoy the game, which affects their performance. But for me, especially growing up with the career I've had, is just you need to enjoy your football before anything else, and that's what I try and do every week.
It's great to be present, isn't it? Because a lot of footballers will go through their career and be like, thank God that's over.
Yeah.
thank God it's over. The stress of that, don't want to go back and play that again, which is kind of sad. Like it's meant to be your highlight of your
That's
life.
what I mean, and it's only a short career as well. So again, for me, it's you don't know when your career could be over. So it's about just enjoying it, because years ago it would have been like blah blah blah. Listen, I need to play this well. I need to do this, do that. But now it's like I need to enjoy. And once you enjoy your football, you play the best football your career. And I'm a
Simplify
firm
it.
believer in that.
It's great.
Yeah.
It's a good way to be.
No, it is.
It's good. It's good to hear that you're enjoying, because a lot of players do come on, and even that we've chatted to, and you kind of sense that anxiety of like, especially high stakes. It's a high pressure sport. All sport is high pressure, especially at elite level. But it's good to know that people like you are just self-aware, present, enjoy the game, relax. Whatever happens, you know.
Yeah,
it's great. It's a great way to be.
Good group as well, because like we went, I think 7 games without a win during the middle of the season, and with some dressing rooms, I've seen it before. There'd be people kicking off, but the lads we have now are brilliant. It's like, right, we lost. What can we do about it? Just move on to next week, and that's kind of the attitude we've had, and it feeds into my personality a little bit more. It's just kind of like, kind of forget about it and let's move on, and we've been brilliant ever since.
Yeah, that small things like that can affect your enjoyment as well, can't they? Because like the people you're around is obviously the key fundamental. Gary was asking about the backroom staff and your gaffers, coaches. You have to obviously get on with them. Then the players, but then even players' reactions to things like that. What do you think is the ideal? So game over, you're after losing the game. Obviously, it can be context dependent. But when you go into the dressing room, what is your ideal reaction?
Like sometimes emotion does take over, and you might say something that you might regret. Not bad, but you might say you should have done better when it's realistically it's your fault, that sort of way. But for me, I kind of just go in and I just look around the lads, any of them seeing proper down, have a little chat, and then just get on. If you're away, get on the bus, go home, and just try and smile as much as you can, and try and get over it as soon as possible. Because again, it's such a cliche, but if you dwell on a loss, it's not going to be any good for you. So no, I wouldn't normally kick off. It's not my sort of thing to do. So again, it's about kind of regrouping the lads and trying on again next week.
Fair. That's such a post-match
feel like,
interview answer, isn't it? Such a post-match regroup, go again.
Here or
3 points. 3 points, move on.
Sounds like class.
For as a centre half, do you have, obviously you play with many centre half partners. You were saying you had a great relationship with Jack. Manny recently has been excellent in his first year of senior football, and the Drogs. That seems to be, again, Drogs, when something's going good in Drogheda, I feel like everybody knows about it. Do you sense that?
Isn't there?
There's always a good buzz about the place. Even they're flat out in our TikTok comments.
was
Because
gonna
we've
say,
a load of Drogheda. Our Drogheda roots are substantial. The amount of players we've had, even like Dan O'Reilly, Jimmy Brown, obviously Killo's gone. Currently have yourself, Jamie Egan. We know Manny well. He hasn't been in with us, but we know Manny well. It's just always just something going on in Drogheda that we know everyone well. Even a lot of the other lads we'd have a good relationship with. It always seems to be a very good vibe going around Drogheda. And they recruit very well, I have to say. They've done very well because they've lost that year. They lost Jimmy, Dan. It's very easy to just crumble very quickly, but they've been so good, very consistent over the last couple of years. Obviously, as well, Killo that same year. So yeah, the whole Drogheda vibe is interesting.
there as well.
Jordan, obviously, when Jordan first came in with us, Jordan was there the whole time. Yeah, it's mad, isn't it? We do have that connection. So you've Drogheda. What I was going to ask, do you have, if you could mould a centre half partner? So obviously you've got the height, the header, the kicker. If you could mould a centre half partner to play with you, what would you like them to do? How would you like them to look? As in similar height, same thing, or what do you think is the best preference?
You surprised with that one. I think someone who's just how I'd like to play. So someone who's calm, someone who's wouldn't be harping on us through the whole game, because I think that can affect your performance if someone's constantly in your ear, that sort of way. Now it is needed sometimes, but someone who's just calm, composed, do the basics right, and I think everything else takes off after there. Because again, I keep saying about overcomplicating things can affect your performance, but just doing the basics right, and then everything else will fall after that.
Yeah. Simple again, isn't it?
Simple again, like
So
it's quite
so
boring.
simple. But it's a good answer.
It's just the way it is.
I
like,
think but when you simplify the game, though, it's just, you're right. It does help big time. But again, it is so person by person case, isn't it?
I was going to ask, is that similar in your personal life as well? Like, do you find that, like, even let's say the ideal centre half partner is somebody that's quite similar with the same, composure and interest. Is that the same, for example, with your girlfriend? Is that the same with your friend group? Is it all quite like consistent? I wouldn't say laid back, but definitely like just quite self-aware, calm, composed.
No, I think laid back's the perfect word to
Yeah,
use.
is it?
So my granddad always said to me, if it was any more laid back, I'd be horizontal.
Horizontal,
So it's the perfect. That's just the way I am, sort of way. And a lot of I wouldn't be too outgoing if that makes sense. In all aspects of life, but again, for me, it's just especially I'm playing football, it's just calm, composed, laid back, and stuff like that. So, it's quite similar on and off the pitch, but again, that's just the way I sort of am. So,
Yeah, because I find that my personality drifted a little bit from, let's say, when I was an older teenager into like mid-20s, now going into like later 20s. Do you find that from when you were that kid who walked home at your trial to where you are now, that you are, let's say, more or less the same at the core, or do you think a lot has changed through the experience of football and the experience of life?
I think at the core, I'm the same person.
Yeah.
But from what I was then to what I am now is completely different. I think the way I was as a kid, I was very, very anxious in a lot of things, and nowadays I wouldn't be like that at all. I've gone through so much of dealing with anxiety and stuff like that. But I think the core has always been there of what I am today, and I think it's kind of filtered itself out over the years. Just as you kind of grow up and mature, these things sort of start to wither out. But no, I think at the core, I'm still kind of the same person, same personality.
Yeah, of course. And with, let's say, dealing with anxiety as like a young teenager, do you find that you had to get external help or, let's say, internal coping mechanisms, or was it just a case of, let's say, gradual exposure to it where you kind of just made your own sort of way to navigate through it?
No, I'd so much external help, lads. I could list off so much. We'd be here for hours talking about it. I had to get external help when I was younger and just coming into my 20s, and even last year as well. I had to go back to doing it as well. But again, it's always good to have those outside voices, because with me, I kind of trap things in a little bit sometimes as well. And I've gotten a lot better at it now, speaking to the people around me and all. But back then was just a kid, just anxiety controlled my life, that sort of way. Football, life, family, everything. It was a horrible time. And that time when I went to England, kind of summed it up. I didn't want to be anywhere apart from home, that sort of way. And as well, actually, after that, I got a call from, I was training with Peterborough over in Malahide, and my man back came into the room and said, look, they want to bring you over 3 days. And before they even finished the sentence, I just said no.
Right.
No.
Wow.
No chance. Because actually, one of them, Adam McDonald, who plays with Bows now, they wanted to bring the two of us over, and Adam lived in Dunboyne with me. I think he was in Dunboyne at the time, so it would have made it easier. But in my head, I was like, no chance. Something's gonna happen to me, or I'm not gonna, basically come home, or something mad's gonna happen. So I had to get external help too, basically on my school years and stuff like that. But I'm at the better of it now. Thank God.
No,
Brilliant.
brilliant, man. Thanks for sharing that. And myself and Morgan go to a therapist as well, proactively, just to keep an eye on things. And I would say I definitely went reactively to deal with a couple of things, but I think now kind of the relationship I have with it is more so trying to discover a bit more about myself, learn about these things, and kind of see, I wouldn't say the faults, but the potential slip that you can go down if you just let your guard down a little bit, because things kind of pile up quite quickly. Even it just takes a bad influence somewhere or something to happen to spark, let's say, a downfall in your own mental health. And I think it's definitely, let's say, a proactive approach. And again, as you said, a self-aware approach to say, you know what, even at that like immature age, is like, I need this, because that's definitely something that I've got from this conversation from you, is it's extremely authentic at every point where you're talking. Like, I don't think there's, from what I can gather from the conversation, it's just like, I just don't think there was a time in your life where you didn't trust your own gut and your own person, if that makes sense. Does that resonate?
No, it does big time. It does big time. And going back to the point there about, sort of use yourself seeking help and doing it on your own initiative, it's so important, no matter what age you're at. Because the start of last year, I lost my granddad in the house, And after that, I was obviously distraught and stuff like that. But then the anxiety started kicking back in, and I could have just shelled in, said nothing. But from speaking to my parents, my girlfriend as well, they said, just go talk to someone. And I think I did 4 sessions, and I was fine after.
Great.
Amazing.
Fine after.
Did you get coping mechanisms from that, or was it a case of you just had to speak?
I think I just had to speak at that moment. I have coping mechanisms from obviously when I was younger, the endless amount of councils that I went to. But now I just had to get an outside voice that wasn't my family and friends and stuff like that. And again, I only took the 4 sessions, but it worked tremendously, thank God.
Brilliant. Brave to go.
No, it is. And
Very
again,
brave to go.
when I was actually younger, I didn't like counselling when I was younger because I felt like there's a big bad woman talking to me here, and I don't want to talk to her. But it was actually hypnotherapy that I went to, that basically helped me get over most of the anxiety, which was something I'd never heard of, but it was something that my mum had found out off somebody, went and tried it. About 5 sessions later, I was brand new.
Wow.
Fine.
Can you give a rough definition of what exactly that, like what that entails?
It was hypnosis, so it's a bit, I don't know what the word is now to use, but it was kind of just like, do you ever get those salt rooms? Do you ever hear them?
Yeah.
It wasn't a salt room, but it was kind of that kind of sort of vibe, you know, that sort of way. You go in, you have a long chair and you're lying down, and he's talking to you in your ear and trying to relive memories to get down to the why you're feeling like this. And found I don't remember this, but I spoke out while I was basically not knocked out, but there was 2 points in my life, and he pointed them out, and that was
Bang.
how I found out. And from then, that's
incredible.
how I coped from there.
Sorry to cut across.
You're grand.
When people think hypnosis, they think of like somebody with a clock in front of your eyes, but it actually isn't that. People should definitely look up on Google what proper hypnosis actually is.
No, probably not the Simpsons sort of black and white circle. No, it is different, but no, that helped me big time, and not just with life but with football as well, like, because there'd be away days as well, like going down the country, let's say to Waterford or Cork, and you'd be thinking like before going like, you know, what happens if this and that, what if we don't come home, and like a lot of mine is kind of health, anxiety, well, what more recently, but stuff like that, it is brilliant. And again, as I said, the proper hypnosis stuff is really interesting to look up on, and a lot of people might be skeptical, saying like, it's just a lag, it's kind of just another way to make money, but it's really, really good.
No doubt. I find when you talk about hypnosis, let's say therapy, anything to do with like spiritual aspects, if people are uncomfortable hearing those words, they probably should go look it up, because there's definitely something calling at them that they're fighting against. I find I got that originally. I was like unsure or uneasy. It was like, that doesn't sound right. I was like, well, that's probably a sign that you're not comfortable looking in those areas for the answers type of thing.
No, big time. And sometimes, again, that was me going out of my comfort zone, and that's what it's all about. You know, doing things that will go right, click at you. Right, I can actually do that without feeling the way I'm feeling, you know, that sort of way. So it was it was really, really good. Again, didn't have any problems for a couple of years. I had my problems last year. Did things to, you know, cope with them at home. Got the external voice as well, and I've been great ever since. So now again, as I said, look up the proper definitions for it before you sort of assume what they mean. But
absolutely,
yeah, no, it is. I'm doing better now.
Yeah, these things, all it takes is to hear somebody say it, to put like a name on a thing, and then people will do their own research, which I find, and that can even come through a conversation with your friends, for example. Like it could be friend influence. I get a lot of things from podcasts personally. I'd be a lot of input, whereas you are the opposite. You're all output. So Morgan's all about output for work. Whereas I'm kind of like, I need internal, let's say, like learning, or just like constant, just I would say truth seeking more so. But if these things, like even if this conversation can bring, let's say 2 or 3 people to like, oh, maybe I should probably just have a look at that because I'm experiencing X, Y, Z, then I mean the compounding benefits of that is just it's just infinite. Like,
big time. And as I always said, if you have a conversation, let's say this podcast, and there's one person that gets helped out at the end of this, then that makes me happy, you know. So that's your job done. But again, I think as us as players just in the League of Ireland, and there's been a lot of more campaigns stuff with Premier League and stuff over the last few years. It's so important because even I'm only like a part-time footballer, but people do sort of look up to you in that way, and once you kind of speak out, that can help them straight away. Like even with my anxiety, I would have said, I'm the only person that suffers from this.
Yeah.
But when you realise that everyone has anxiety, it's a natural human sort of instinct, it just becomes so much easier.
We were speaking to a sports psychologist not so long ago, right? And he was saying still now in League of Ireland dressing rooms and beyond, there's still a huge stigma around going to see the club psychologist or like even mentioning that you're going to therapy. Even Paddy, who was on the podcast last week, he had mentioned that he never spoke about that he does journaling and writing notes before games and stuff. So why do you think that is? Why do you think the stigma is still there? Which it shouldn't be, because, for example, myself and Gary tell all the lads we go to therapists. Not that there's you don't have to have anything wrong to go to therapy per se. It's great if you are going through stuff. And for example, like I feel good majority of the time, which I'm lucky to have short term, but I went for a whole proactive approach, while some people feel like you have to have the worst thing in the world, then you have to finally pull the trigger, but it could be too late by then. And that's the problem. People can't get out of it then. That's a much bigger issue, short or long term, should I say, as opposed to short term. But why do you think the stigma is still around going to speak out, especially to people that are in your club, for that exact reason? And it doesn't have to be, again, I'm playing terrible, now I go see the psychologist. Why can't it just be, let me go have a conversation?
I know it's frustrating as well, because you want lads to speak out as soon as possible to get them help, but it could be down to their personality. It could be an ego thing. They think, I can't be seen to, but again, everyone feels that way at some point in their life, and it's important, as you said, to not let it snowball to the worst situation possible and then get help. If you nip it in the bud in the early stages, that will never happen. But again, it could be, it's hard to tell because everyone's different, but it could be a personality, it could be an ego thing. It's so hard to tell, but I think we're getting better now that there's more people to talk to. Like even up the north, I think it was a chaplain we had up there who we could go speak to. There's someone in Drogheda now, so there's always someone there to speak in the club, which is good.
It's vital.
No, it is vital.
It's vital. I think, who's I talking to? I can't remember who I was talking to. Possibly Dino about it the other day, but he was saying, obviously, all football is train technically, train physically, get yourself in the gym, get yourself doing technical work, do your shape, understand your tactical stuff. But like probably the key fundamental for all footballers, because everyone in a pro environment can play. Simple as.
100%.
What separates the majority of them? How do they look after their mind? How do they feel when you play? Like you, playing your best football ever. I've seen League of Ireland shed the other day. Your whole thing, you take pride in heading and clearing. You're the most clearances in the league right now. That's a fantastic stat to have. That is what you pride yourself in, and that's what you're executing, and you're enjoying doing it. That's because you have very clear self-awareness. You're obviously a good player, but everyone's a good player, like I said, in the league. What separates it? You are present, you're enjoying yourself, and you know that you can communicate to anyone at any time, and you're openly saying that, which is, again, fantastic. Because to me, this is a normal conversation. Myself and G would talk quite frequently about things like this, but to other people, they might be like, geez, what? Like, that's so open that they're talking about talking to other people. Why? Like, why is that such a stigma? Again, like kind of what we spoke about. I just think it's really interesting, but it's key that in these clubs that you should be training your mind, whether or not that if there is a problem, you should go talk about it. It could be something, nothing football related. Could just be that you need to have a conversation. One conversation can just change your life, essentially. Like, it really can. And it's just key, isn't it? Like, use the people in your arse. It's like, I'm going to go to talk to someone about my agility's poor. Let me go talk to the S&C guy. Let's see what we can do. It should be the exact same thing for a psychologist. Exactly. I believe. And I think in 20, it should be less, but I still think the stigma will take a while. 10, 15 years down the line, I think you'll see incredible performances and incredible mental clarity. Because how many people come out of football and they're not right? You know, they have so much pressure and anxiety, like you said, and trauma that they've probably dealt with in their personal life and in football itself, because it is such a high pressure sport, and people, the majority of professional footballers are fighting year on year for 6-month contract, year contracts, and that builds up. And if you haven't expressed yourself at all to anyone in that stage, let alone someone who's trained to deal with it, people that don't have vested interest in you, it can turn out not good, you know.
No, big time.
So
Big time.
I think it's so important to like train your mind or just talk like it's
No, it is.
simple
And
as
again,
that,
like even us having this conversation, this is just normal to me.
Mm-hmm.
And anyone that would speak to me would know that I'd be very open, because that it's so important as well. Because again, it's not embarrassing. It's not a thing. It's just a chat. Like if you're feeling bad, you're feeling bad. You know what I mean? Everyone has bad days. Everyone feels the same way. But once you know that everyone's kind of going through the same thing, it just makes it so much easier. But again, there's so many lads I've seen over the years who've had, you know, problems with like several different things, and it's just having a chat with them, and you know they're doing well now, and I don't think there's not much problems, because if they've sought help. So it's no, it's good to see.
Mm-hmm. Great, really good. It was
On
a good
that note.
conversation. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I really enjoyed that.
No, loved it.
Really enjoyed
Loved
that. Yeah. So, yeah, fantastic. Thank you for your time.
No worries.
It was a pleasure.
Appreciate it. No, really enjoyed it.
Real pleasure.
Really enjoyed it.
And well, as we always say, to be honest, everyone that we've had on so far, obviously we know quite well. We haven't had really anyone external yet.
Mm-hmm.
We're trying to share the stories of the people currently in our circle, which is fantastic. But thank you again for being here. Number one, be physically present, mentally present, and speaking so openly. Because again, we believe that this is exactly how, again, the whole stigma around men, this is exactly how we should talk, and it should be a normal everyday conversation. But again, as a footballer, as you said, you can be a role model, so it's important that you express exactly who you are. Don't put on a front. This is exactly who you are, and thank you for being so authentic. Like Gary said, it's key. It's going to make for good listeners. Hopefully a couple of people get lots of value out of it. I'm sure they will.
Yeah,
because
again,
I have
if
as
there's
well.
anyone out there that does want help, whatever, I'm always open, and there's plenty of other people open as well that you can have a chat with. So hopefully it resonates with a few people, and we can help a few out.
Absolutely. Beautiful.
Cheers, boys.
We out. Boom.